Welcome back to the U.S. versus the World show. We move along to the juvenile. And we were talking about Bob Baffert lined up strong in the sprint with Sensational. He's got to feel good with his chances here with Looking at Lucky, who we'll get to in a moment as we look at all the contenders, though. And the world, as usual, in the juvenile, quite a few good chances in here. It's a group that's kind of been beaten up on each other, though, a little bit, Simon.
They certainly have, but the Europeans have a fairly good record in a race. For most part, has been run on a conventional dirt. They won it with Arazi, Wilco, and Johannesburg back in 2001. Aidan O'Brien sends Beethoven and Alfred Nobel for his camp. Radiohead comes in from England, and Vale of York, of course, for Godolphin and Said Bin Sarur, who was second in the Grand Criterium last time out. Probably a weak race in Italy, but I think they got a chance to make an impact here a little bit.
All right, well, among the contenders and the horse who was the most recent winner, listen. Beethoven. Well, he won the Dewhurst Stakes, a Group 1, last time outside.
It was a perfectly composed ride by Ryan Moore as we listen to Beethoven's fifth there.
Yeah. Graham, how good is Beethoven? We talked a little bit, this group, they've kind of beat each other up a little bit. Beethoven, though, looked very good in the Dewhurst last time out. Is he the leading contender for this world contingent here?
He probably is the leading contender. We have strength in numbers in this contest, and I think we need them because we don't have an outstanding colt. We don't have a Johannesburg or an Arazi there. Beethoven probably is the best of them, but he's won only 2 of his 10 starts, and that's got to be a concern. That Dewhurst win probably owed something to the fact that he had headgear on for the first time. The visors really channeled him, and presumably they'll be worn again, and hopefully they'll have another positive effect. But I do think the one string of hope we have with Beethoven is the step up in trip. He's raced only at 6 and 7 furlongs so far, and in the Dewhurst he was badly outpaced 3 furlongs from home. Then all of a sudden, as the stamina began to be drawn out, suddenly he galloped back through. So he looks to me like a horse who's crying out for a mile. If the Americans have a really good 2-year-old, I think they'll probably beat him. But I think Beethoven, he'll give a good account of himself trying this trip for the first time, and he's definitely the best of the Europeans.
Well, and Simon, it seems like the U.S. does have a very good 2-year-old in Bob Baffert's Looking at Lucky, who's undefeated. He's 4 for 4. He wins that win in your in race in the Norfolk at Oak Tree. How good do you feel Looking at Lucky is, and do you feel he is the big hopeful in this race for the U.S.?
Oh, I think so. He's the real deal. I mean, you look at him here in the Norfolk Stakes, and I tell you what, when you look at this horse for the first time, you think, well, he's not that impressive, but pay close attention to him. He's a horse that's learning. Look, he gets to the front, his ears come up, he puts the brakes on, and Garrett Gomez is getting into him left-handed. There his ears come up, and he comes to a complete walk. The contender comes down to the inside and asks for more run, and it makes Looking at Lucky re-rally. This is a horse, like Magical Fantasy, that you are never going to get to the bottom of. This horse, we've only seen 80% of the talent that is in underneath him, I think. He's a very, very good 2-year-old. Bob Baffert speaks very, very highly of him. And a guy that's done so good with 2-year-olds over the years, you have to respect those comments from Bob Baffert.
He'll be the favorite in the race, so we already know where you're going.
Yeah, there's no question about it.
So the coin flip to the U.S. for the juvenile.
Flip it right there. Land on the American flag, stars and stripes.
All right, juvenile fillies, let's move on. Hey, the U.S. going to rack up a win here, too, because really there's no world contenders in this group. Who is the toughest? Yeah, the winning your in horses, Negligee, you have Devil May Care, and then Blind Luck for Jerry Hollendorfer.
Yeah, those are the major contenders. I mean, Blind Luck I thought was very impressive in the Oak Leaf, but yeah, unfortunately, it's another one for the Americans here.
And you're going to reserve who you think that
Yes.
will be until we get closer to the big race. All right, let's move on to the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Master Craftsman, that horse alone makes this race very scary. That is the leading contender for the world. What about the U.S. contingent, though?
I mean, we've got Mr. Sydney, who prefers soft ground. Bull's Bay, who's cutting back to a mile after running 3rd in the Woodwood. Crown of Thorns, of course, Midshipman and Pyro. But, yeah, I mean...
Mr. Sydney's first choice, by the way, though, is the TVG Breeders' Cup Mile.
Exactly, yeah. I think Master Craftsman is the one to beat in here. I mean, again, he's a horse that's been running behind See the Stars. We've talked about him at length. I mean, he's going to be very, very tough to beat in here.
All right, Graham, let's bring you in. Master Craftsman, we had the pleasure of seeing him run, and Simon did as well in person at Royal Ascot. He's very, very good. How does he stack up against this group?
He's very, very good. I think he'll set a good standard here. This is an intelligent piece of placing from Aidan O'Brien, because if Master Craftsman had gone for the turf mile, I think he'd have struggled against Goldikova. But in his own right, he's a top-class racehorse, and I think they found an easier opportunity for him. He's already won the Classic, the Irish 2000 Guineas. He won that by a wide margin. He beat Delegator in the St James's Palace Stakes at Royal Ascot. And he's been turned over a couple of times since, chiefly by Cedar Stars, but there's no disgrace in that. If there's one Achilles heel in Master Craftsman, it could be that he's a better horse at 1.25 miles than a mile. And if they don't happen to go much of a pace, he could just be vulnerable. But providing he gets a good draw, Johnny Murty can bounce him out into a handy position and really use the horse, then his ability should shine through. And if that's the case, I think he'll win.
All right, Graham Smith, we appreciate your insights, and we hope you have a successful Breeders' Cup. It's been great getting your information on these world contenders. Simon, do you agree with Graham here in this race? You going with Master Craftsman?
Yeah, Master Craftsman, the best horse on form. Just look at the form, and you'll come to that conclusion.
All right. So, again, the world. How many is that now for you for the world?
Yeah, we're racking up. We're going to give you a total at the end of the show.
All right, Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. We move along. 6.5 down the hill on this turf course. And the United States contingent includes the defending champ, but California Flag coming in off a win in you're in Morvich.
He had one blip in his radar on his last 10 starts. That was in this race last year. He came out of that race, had some ankle surgery. He's a better animal this year. California Flag will lead him gate to wire.
What about Cannonball, who you saw run over at Royal Ascot?
Yeah, Cannonball is, I don't think as good as California Flag here. I think California Flag, proven down the downhill turf course, that is key here.
All right, we are going to step aside for a short timeout. Again, we want to thank Graham Smith for his insights from Timeform. We will be back. A few more to go when we return on the U.S. versus the world.